Okay, welcome to Module 1. My name is Catherine Lewis. My background is as an educational designer and multimedia designer in higher ed, and I'm also a science teacher. And in saying that, let's get in and start understanding or revising what we know or what we don't know, and trying to wrap our head around abstract, because it's once you get it, it's so intuitive, but just getting beyond what things are telling each other to do is the trick. So let's just make a simple. We'll look at some code first, but we're going to make a the other thing is you have to use ActionScript 3, and ActionScript 2 is sort of the past, and it was all about animation, but now we've got all these other devices that we need to put code into, and I'll go into that later as well. But we're going to just make a simple oval tool. Now, it used to be a circle tool. This tool panel's changed a little bit, so we could just click on oval, and we're going to make a green button. Now, if you remember from the past, you need to make this, because at the moment this is just a graphic. It's just sitting on stage. It's not in the library. It's nothing that we can reuse. So in order to make it into a symbol, if you recall, we click on our selection tool. So we just select it. We go to modify, convert to symbol. And we'll name that symbol circle. Now we'll make it a movie clip, because if you remember, well, what we'll go into is there are classes, which is sort of the overall thing, and then under that there's objects, which are the instances. So we're going to create, and that's what the properties are attached to objects, is things that you can change. So properties is one of the things you can change, and we've got movie clip, or we've got button, or we've got graphic, but we'll make this movie clip, and we just underscore MC. Now, there's also a certain language called camel case, which I'll talk about in a second. But first, we'll just make this. And if I go to the library, I've got my movie clip in there. If I go to properties, here's it's asking for an instance name. So if you think of a great analogy, I'm always with analogies because I'm a visual thinker. But if you look at a post-it note pad, that whole pad is like the class, like your class of students. But if you start ripping off pieces of the post-it note, those individual ones are basically instances, things that you can change, sort of individual objects, and they're called objects. So an instance now we're going to call, what do they do? Now, here is also camel case. So you start off with a lowercase, and then your next word is a capital letter. So we'll call this, let's say, my circle. Oops, circle. Now, remember that, also underscore MC, so you know it's not a button or a graphic. Now, just remember that and write it down, because you're always going to, when you start coding, you code by the instance. So I'll write it down myself because I always forget. And so we've now got an instance of circle MC. Okay. Now, the other thing, before we start coding, I just want to make sure that that clip is actually in the console, that it's actually in the system. Now, I can see it is, but it only shows me circle MC. So I want to make sure that my circle underscore MC is in the clip. And how I do that is Windows, and you go to your actions. Oh, we also need a timeline. So let's put our timeline in. And of course, I never put it in the right spot. And I'll just move this little guy up so I can fit all this in. And so here's our first layer, but when we want to start doing ActionScript, we're going to create a second layer, and we'll rename this Actions, and I'm going to click on it here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of code in, which is I've got to get the code over here. So here's where I do my scripts. You can call this layer actions or AS3 or scripts or whatever. There's no rule to it. Just whatever you can identify, that's where you're going to code. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to trace it and see if we can find it. So we go trace space parenthesis, and we're going to put in our instance, which is my circle underscore MC and parenthesis. And we also finish off by telling it that's the end by the semicolon. So if I now if I test that, so you go control test, or you can just do it on your system. I've got a graphic here, but I want to see where the output is. So to go to output, you can go to Window Output or F2, and it's saying, yes, there is an object, which is a movie clip. Now, if we wanted to find the name of this, so it creates a Swift file, which we'll go into later as well, but if we wanted to create a name for this, we would just put it in exclamation mark. And you see how it's changing color as well, so it's telling you that, that's correct. So again, control test movie, and if we want to see what the output is, usually it'll just come up, but I've got to actually ask for it for some strange reason. Or you can just press F2 and it'll come up with the name. Okay, so that's tracing, that's looking at where it is in the system. And we'll stop there, go away, practice your symbols, test whether you can get an output of either the name or just, yes, I have a movie clip. So that should take you probably about 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how much you remember or how current you are with your action script.